Chapter 377. The Immortal Body. The mad and frenzied Chao Yuan, filled with overwhelming malice, indiscriminately chopped apart the vines entangling the Ant Queen, rushing to her front. His blade, enveloped in a sinister flame, clashed against the Ant Queen's wild blades. The black flames swirling around the straight sword collided with several razor-sharp spikes in an instant, the movements of these two madmen leaving behind afterimages, their malevolent energy overflowing, dazzling the onlookers. However, this evenly matched clash lasted only a moment. In that brief time, Lin Chia had successfully eroded 40% of the Ant Queen's body. This darkness was even more terrifying than the paper doll transformation for the Ant Queen, a lethal poison. Deprived of her strength, the Ant Queen immediately wilted, while Chao Yuan's strikes grew faster and faster, the chilling malice easily leaving deep wounds on the Ant Queen's red armor, ultimately shattering it completely. The battered Ant Queen let out a shriek and turned to flee, unwilling to continue entangled with the madman Chao Yuan. Yet Lin Chia behind her had no intention of letting her go. He tightly gripped the hilt of the straight sword embedded in the Ant Queen's body, twisting forcefully, dragging two deep blood trails across her back. 3,000 guests intoxicated in flowers, a sword of cold frost across 14 states. A chilling sword energy surged from between Lin Chia's blade, directly flowing into the Ant Queen's body through the blood trails, instantly shredding her internal organs. With Lin Chia's sword as the dividing line, half of her body was cut apart. Lin Chia fell to the ground along with the severed body, green blood soaking his black shirt. He looked up at the Ant Queen, who was almost just ahead, his brow furrowing tightly. Should one say that she is indeed a mystery of the sea realm? Her body had been eroded and corroded by the deepest darkness, and even half of her body had been cut to pieces, yet she was still alive? But it was certain that the Ant Queen was now at her last gasp. Today, she would undoubtedly die. The remaining half of the Ant Queen's body let out a mournful howl, completely losing her sense of perception, like a headless fly dashing around the hall. Green blood continuously poured from her body, her internal organs scattered everywhere, yet her powerful will to survive forced her to seek hope for survival. By sheer coincidence, she ultimately chose a corner of the hall, using all her strength to charge toward it. Lin Chia and the others saw this scene, their expressions suddenly changing. In the direction of the Ant Queen's mindless charge stood a girl in a blue Han robe, quietly watching. When she saw the Ant Queen rushing toward her, a look of surprise appeared in her eyes. Not good. Lin Chia furrowed his brow and quickly threw his straight sword, whistling as it intercepted in front of Jelon. But the distance between him and Jelon was simply too far, and with the Ant Queen having lost most of her body, her desperate struggle made her speed incredibly fast. Even with the sword's flying speed, it was difficult to intercept her in time. The rampaging Ant Queen charged forward, her massive body still formidable despite losing most of it, moving with astonishing speed like a high-speed train. A few shattered pieces of red armor clung to her head, glinting with a chilling light, and in an instant she reached the girl. Jelon calmly watched the Ant Queen rushing toward her, silently placing her hard wooden bow behind her, extending a delicate pale hand slowly to block in front of her. Boom! The astonishingly fast Ant Queen crashed into Jelon's palm, the sharp fragments of her shell exploding with a thunderous sound, visible shockwaves sweeping outward, causing the girl's deep blue Han robe to flutter wildly. This high-speed train, upon colliding with that petite figure, was forcibly halted before her palm, unable to advance even a fraction. Under the terrifying kinetic energy, the Ant Queen's head cracked inch by inch. Before her final wail could escape, the shockwave instantly shattered her entire nervous system. The already twisted remains of the Ant Queen collapsed like a pile of mud, slumping lifelessly in front of Jelon, completely devoid of any life force. Jelon slowly withdrew her hand, her palm as white as jade, showing no signs of injury, as if the Ant Queen had not even touched a single hair on her. The entire hall fell into a deathly silence. Lin Chia, Bai Li Pangpang and An Qingyu were utterly shocked by the scene before them. They were well aware of the strength of the Ant Queen's final desperate attack. Even any one of them would not have been able to win easily against it. Yet, this seemingly ordinary girl had effortlessly neutralized it with a single hand. Bai Li Pangpang and An Qingyu turned to Lin Chia, their eyes filled with questions. while Lin Chia could only helplessly shake his head, indicating that he too was unsure of what had just happened. Chao Yuan, holding his sword, approached Lin Chia with a silly grin. Lin Chia. 2 minutes later. Chao Yuan, tightly bound, lay on the ground in despair, while Lin Chia and the others had gathered around Jialan. Are you hurt? Lin Chia asked. Jialan shook her head, her black hair gently swaying behind her waist. Are you really human? Lin Chia asked again. Jialan. With a helpless expression, Jialan nodded again, her gaze toward Lin Chia filled with resentment. Bai Li Pangpang patted Lin Chia's shoulder, unable to help but advise. Chia, your ability to talk is quite impressive. You shouldn't say anything more from now on. And Qingyu looked Jialan up and down, a faint gray light appearing in her eyes, her face filled with unprecedented curiosity. Can I? No. Oh. And Qingyu lowered her head in disappointment. Beside them, Chao Yuan tore off the tape binding him, getting up from the ground and looked thoughtfully at Jialan, uncertainly speaking. Do you guys feel that scene just now was a bit familiar? Bai Li Pangpang turned back, scratching his head in confusion. What was familiar? And Qingyu seemed to recall something and suddenly spoke up. Are you talking about the girl with immortal characteristics recorded in that dossier? Chao Yuan nodded. The ability to grant arrows immortal characteristics, impervious to blades and unbreakable, and judging by her attire she should belong to that era. Lin Chia asked in confusion, what dossier? And Qingyu briefly described the case in that dossier, and Lin Chia immediately understood. This story matched perfectly with the scene he had seen on the coffin lid. If nothing unexpected happened, the girl before them should indeed be the immortal person recorded in the dossier. Are they talking about your story? Lin Chia turned to the silent Jialan. Jialan pursed her lips and gently nodded. Lin Chia opened his mouth about to say something, when a series of thunderous roars suddenly erupted from outside the hall. In the next moment, the imperial robe draped over the throne seemed to sense something, suddenly flying up from the throne, like a bolt of lightning crashing through the imperial palace's doors, disappearing without a trace. Chapter 378. Emperor of Fengdu. 3 minutes ago. Outside the Fengdu imperial palace. Li Diang stood on the 5th floating stone slab, looking up at the palace above him. A sense of endless weariness washed over his face as countless sealed memories surged from the depths of his soul, his eyes filled with pain and conflict. So it was you. You who manipulated the cycle of reincarnation, allowing me to be born in the nearest Antak County. You who called my name every night as I fell asleep, bringing me back to Antak County. You who brought me to the abandoned forest, where I witnessed that worker ant appear and request rescue from the higher-ups. In the primeval forest, it was also you who hinted for me and them to continue forward. Even after entering Fengdu, you guided me all the way to this palace. My life has always been under your influence. He slowly took a step forward, stepping onto the next stone slab. Buzz. The buzzing sound echoed in the sky outside the palace. Li Diang's eyes grew even more somber. Must it be this way? He murmured to himself. I just wanted to quietly guard the border, buy a house for my father to retire in, find a reliable son-in-law for my daughter, and give them a happy and fulfilling life, then die like a warrior in front of countless people. Your responsibility, your great path, is simply too heavy for me. If I become you, am I still Li Diang? His voice was soft, as if asking himself or perhaps someone else. He took another step, stepping onto the next stone slab. The tremor sounded again like a dull thunder, echoing in the skies of Fengdu. Those fragmented memories that did not belong to him surged from the deepest part of his soul, flooding into his mind. In a daze, he heard the pleading voices of those spirits. Please save us. If this continues, I will also become a vengeful spirit. You can clearly do it. Why? Why? I beg you, even if it's just for my child, please. He opened his eyes in shock, turning to look behind him. He stood on the floating stone slab, gazing down at the desolate ghost city beneath him. Beneath his feet was a city filled with countless spirits. They had been waiting here for 100 years. So that's it, so you meant this. He looked down at the ghost city, a glimmer of understanding slowly blossoming in his eyes, and the corners of his mouth lifted slightly. He opened his arms as if to embrace this ghost city. They are also countless people. Li Diang reached into his pocket and pulled out a shining medal, carefully rubbing its surface with his thumb. Looking at the neatly engraved characters spelling Li Diong, a look of reluctance appeared on his face. He flicked the metal lightly with his thumb. Ding! This metal, which had accompanied him for 20 years, symbolizing glory and responsibility, was flicked into the air, spinning rapidly. The surface of the metal clearly reflected the ghost city beneath and Li Diong's calm face. Then it fell into the ghost city below, disappearing from sight. If the dark night descends, I will stand before countless people. Li Diong watched the metal fall, murmuring to himself, "Today, even if I, Li Diong, die for these countless people, what of it?" He turned around and stepped toward the 7th stone slab. Then without any hesitation he stepped onto the 8th, the 9th, the 10th. Bang 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 bang. 4 consecutive loud bangs erupted like thunder in the skies of Fengdu, instantly capturing the attention of all the spirits. They all looked up at the sky, gazing at the palace they had watched over for 100 years. In the courtyard, the spirit that had once communicated with Lin Chia stared blankly at the figure standing before the palace, its lips trembling uncontrollably. Its legs buckled and it fell to the ground, tears streaming down its face. "Welcome back, great emperor." Behind it, its wife and daughter also knelt on the ground, bowing deeply to that figure. Across all of Fengdu, every spirit that still retained a semblance of humanity fell to the ground, excitedly watching the figure before the palace, silently shouting, "Welcome back, great emperor." This voice was unheard by all, but Li Diong could hear it. He stood on the last stone slab, looking down at the spirits bowing before him. The conflict, confusion and hesitation on his face all vanished, replaced by an unprecedented calm. "From now on, there will be no more night watchman Li Diong in this world. I am the great emperor of Fengdu." Bang! The palace doors behind him suddenly swung open, and a large black imperial robe flew out, swirling around Li Diong as if it were rejoicing. Seeing the familiar imperial robe, Li Diong's lips curled up slightly. He reached out and gently beckoned, and the robe draped over his shoulders, moving of its own accord. The golden patterns shimmered with an unprecedented brilliance, and a powerful imperial aura suddenly descended. Behind him, Lin Chia and the others stood at the door, staring in shock at the scene before them, their mouths agape. "Li Uncle Li, this is..." Bai Li Pang Pang felt the aura emanating from Li Diong and the swirling imperial robe, unable to utter a complete sentence. Lin Chia gazed at Li Diong's back. Although he was equally astonished, he was somewhat calmer than the other two. "He is the reincarnation of the great emperor of Fengdu." Lin Chia slowly spoke, realizing he should have thought of this earlier. "Fengdu is the legendary land of the dead. How could its gates casually open for you? But, how could he be the great emperor of Fengdu?" Bai Li Pang Pang still found it hard to believe. He was clearly just an ordinary kind-hearted uncle. Where was the aura of an emperor? Before the memories of reincarnation awakened, he was just Li Diong. Chao Yuan sighed deeply, somewhat emotional as he said, "But now, it might not be the case anymore." Outside the palace, Li Diong, draped in the imperial robe, slowly closed his eyes, his realm rapidly ascending. Pool realm, river realm, sea realm, limitless Klein. When the last shackle of Klein was easily broken, his entire aura seemed to transcend, stepping into a mysterious realm. Then his aura came to a halt. He frowned slightly, looking down at his hands, shaking his head helplessly. Was this all he could recover to? At that moment he seemed to sense something, suddenly raising his head to look at the sky of Fengdu, his expression gradually growing serious. He saw the pitch-black dome suddenly ripple with a sinister red, an extremely eerie aura suddenly descending upon Fengdu, causing all the spirits to tremble uncontrollably beneath this aura. Within the crimson ripples, a black hand suddenly reached out, followed by an arm, a shoulder, a head and a body. He emerged from the ripples, quietly hovering in the air. A black, bare-chested deity. Chapter 379. 6 Paths of Reincarnation. It was. Chao Yuan looked up at the figure floating in the sky, his expression slightly changing. A god. Lin Chia took a deep breath. That aura could only belong to a god. No one understood the pressure of the divine better than Lin Chia. Back in Songnan he had encountered Indra and even killed a manifestation of Loki. But how could there be an outer god within Fengdu? How did it get in? Chao Yuan furrowed his brows. Lin Chia scrutinized the figure, combining the clues with the descriptions of the ghosts within that mansion, arriving at a bold hypothesis. Perhaps it had always been here, never leaving. The Emperor of Fengdu looked up at the figure in the sky, his eyes narrowing slightly. Inimo. The Emperor of Fengdu's voice echoed in the air. You have taken fragments of my Fengdu and now you leave a projection here. What do you intend to do? The pure black god floating in midair looked down at the Emperor of Fengdu, sneering as he spoke. When we shattered Fengdu back then, I didn't take those 3 bastards. I only took the smallest piece. Naturally, I had to leave a backup plan coveting the last fragment. Unfortunately, with your imperial might here, even after all these years, I still cannot shake it even a little. Yen Mo's figure slowly descended, floating in front of the Emperor of Fengdu, looking at him with a hint of mockery, a strange light flickering in his eyes. I didn't expect you to return and, you're even weaker than before. The corners of his mouth uncontrollably curled up. If I kill you here, your imperial might will be completely erased and then the last fragment of Fengdu will fall into my hands. The Emperor of Fengdu spoke indifferently. You can't even shake my imperial might, yet you wish to kill me? If you were at your peak, I would certainly run as far as I could. Yen Mo narrowed his eyes slightly, but now it's different. In these past 2 years we have figured out your weaknesses. Although the gods of Daxia have emerged, they are all reincarnated bodies, and their strength is not even close to what it once was. Perhaps you still don't know? The many divine kingdoms shrouded in mist are already subtly forming an alliance, intending to erase you before the gods of Daxia fully revive. By then, with just your few reincarnated gods, can you withstand it? Hearing this, the Emperor of Fengdu's brows furrowed slightly, then relaxed again as he sneered. You outer gods, each with your own treacherous thoughts, dare to turn your backs on each other? Even if you want to join forces to attack Daxia, who among you dares to take the lead? Upon hearing this, Yen Mo's gaze sharpened, his expression darkening. Emperor of Fengdu facing death, don't think you can struggle. Today, I will take your corpse and your Fengdu ghost city. Yen Mo sat cross-legged in midair, his hands forming a strange seal in front of his chest. The blood-red ripples in the sky suddenly surged violently, and a ghostly face, formed from countless blood-colored vengeful spirits, roared as it fell from the sky. This ghostly face nearly occupied 1/3 of the sky above Fengdu, and the wailing cries echoed in the air. The mouth of the ghostly face opened wide, its corners splitting to the roots of its ears, as if it intended to swallow the Emperor of Fengdu below. The imperial robe on the Emperor of Fengdu rustled loudly. He looked up at the approaching ghostly face, his expression remarkably calm. Though I am a reincarnated body, you are merely a projection. To kill me, you are not qualified. He raised his arm, gently pressing his palm toward the sky. A mighty aura of death from the underworld gathered, transforming into a gigantic hand that directly slapped toward the blood-colored ghostly face in the air. The black hand collided with the blood-colored ghostly face, which was instantly dispersed in the air. The vanishing blood-colored vengeful spirits transformed into a thick red cloud, gradually being devoured by the underworld death aura, disappearing without a trace. Seeing this scene, Yen Mo's expression darkened, and just as he was about to act, his body suddenly froze. The Emperor of Fengdu, who had been standing on the floating stone slab, had vanished. Yen Mo seemed to sense something and quickly looked up. Under the black dome, the Emperor of Fengdu stood in the air, his black robe with golden patterns billowing without wind. He gently beckoned, and an ancient-looking black throne flew out from the imperial palace, hovering behind him. The Emperor of Fengdu slowly sat on the divine throne, looking down at Yen Mo below, and spoke slowly. Yen Mo, don't forget, this is Fengdu, my divine kingdom. As his voice fell, a silver light suddenly burst forth from the void in front of the throne, and a massive silver sphere floated in midair, its surface surrounded by 6 silver rings, spinning chaotically in the air, making one dizzy just by looking at it. The moment the silver sphere appeared, an ancient and mysterious pressure of the great Tao suddenly descended upon Fengdu, as if some law had changed, profoundly mysterious. Yen Mo's expression changed drastically upon seeing the silver sphere. The Emperor of Fengdu sat on the throne, slowly speaking. You wanted Fengdu, didn't you? Score is right here. The 6 paths of reincarnation. Can you handle it? He flipped his palm, and a silver ring emerged from the surface of the sphere, like a bolt of lightning streaking across the sky, heading straight for Yen Mo's face. Yen Mo frowned, seemingly having made a decision. He turned and transformed into a streak of light, speeding away into the distance. But the silver ring merely trembled lightly and expanded infinitely, instantly enveloping all of Fengdu. This silver ring that covered all of Fengdu naturally ensnared Yen Mo within it. The Emperor of Fengdu lightly flicked his finger, and the ring began to shrink at an astonishing speed. Within the silver ring, no matter how fast Yen Mo moved, he still found himself being drawn back toward the center, rapidly retreating to his original position. Emperor Fengdu. Yen Mo, furious and embarrassed, raised his head and shouted, "You dare to use the power of Dasha's laws? If my true body were here, you wouldn't be able to trap me so easily. Why can't I use the laws I created myself?" The Emperor of Fengdu sat on the throne, speaking leisurely. He flicked his finger again and 2 more silver rings emerged from the sphere, once again enveloping Yen Mo's body, rapidly closing in from 3 different angles toward the center. Yen Mo. The Emperor of Fengdu's eyes narrowed as he watched the disheveled Yen Mo below, his voice filled with chilling killing intent. "You tell Osiris, Hades, and Satan that the fragments of Fengdu they took from here. I will take them back one by one with interest." He flicked his finger and the 3 silver rings sliced through the air like 3 razor-thin blades, instantly severing Yen Mo's head. Chapter 380. The Arrival of the Celestial Sovereign. The silver ring in the air shrank into a black dot with no size or thickness, then expanded again to its original form, and Yen Mo's head had already fallen from his black body. There was no blood, no warmth, as if the figure suspended before him was merely a clay statue, never having possessed life. In midair, the Emperor of Fengdu lightly curled his fingers, and 3 rings gracefully flew back into his palm, then encircled the rotating silver sphere, all the silver rings returning to it, revolving in a mysterious trajectory. He turned his palm over and the silver sphere vanished from sight. The Emperor of Fengdu slowly stood up from the divine throne, stepping down from the air onto the palace floor, his black imperial robe gently swaying with his steps as he walked toward the center of the hall. His gaze calmly swept over Lin Chier and the other 3, his expression revealing no hint of joy or anger, as if all emotions had departed from him, leaving only a faint imperial pressure and absolute tranquility. Suddenly he stopped in the center of the hall. The Emperor of Fengdu seemed to sense something, turned his head toward the direction of the palace door, slowly turned around and respectfully bowed to the void ahead. "The director of the underworld, I have met the primordial heavenly venerable." Lin Chier and the others were momentarily taken aback, simultaneously turning to look at the empty palace door. They saw a figure in a coarse Taoist robe slowly materializing from the void, hair tied up with a hairpin, eyes sparkling like stars. He had his hands clasped behind his back, walking forward with a smile, saying, "Should I call you the Emperor of Fengdu or Li Diong?" The Emperor of Fengdu's body trembled imperceptibly, but his expression remained unchanged as he replied, "The night watchman Li Diong is dead. I am the director of the underworld under the Taoist lord, the Emperor of Fengdu of the Northern Yin." The Taoist approached him, his deep-set eyes gazing at the Emperor of Fengdu for a moment before he chuckled lightly and waved his sleeve, saying, "Whether you are the Emperor of Fengdu or Li Diong, in any case, welcome back." The Emperor of Fengdu bowed deeply, then raised his head and hesitated for a moment before asking, "Has the primordial heavenly venerable come here because you are worried I cannot defeat that Yen Mo projection?" The Taoist was taken aback and smiled helplessly. "After 100 years, it seems your temperament has become even more straightforward than before. Indeed, I thought that since you had just awakened your memories, even if you inherited part of the original Emperor of Fengdu's power, you might not necessarily be able to defeat that outer god. Seems I was overthinking it. Fortunately, the Tao Wheel of Reincarnation is here, which gives you a slight edge." The Emperor of Fengdu stated truthfully, "Our great Xia ranks second among the law artifacts. Suppressing a mere outer god projection is naturally not a problem. What I didn't expect was that you could use it right after awakening from reincarnation. It seems your reincarnated body is also exceptionally gifted." The Taoist smiled, shifting his gaze away from the Emperor of Fengdu and finally landing on Lin Chier and the other 3. Seeing the Taoist's gaze sweep over, the 4 instantly tensed up. From the Emperor of Fengdu's words, it was clear that this seemingly ordinary Taoist was, in fact, one of the 3 heavenly venerables of Taoism, the rumored primordial heavenly venerable standing before them, leaving them somewhat at a loss. Lin Chia had already seen the primordial heavenly venerable when he awakened from his self-world, though at that time he did not know the other's identity. Now seeing this Taoist again, he was naturally immensely shocked. Night Watchman Lin Chia pays respects to the primordial heavenly venerable. Lin Chia took a deep breath and bowed respectfully. The three behind him did the same. The Taoist looked at Lin Chia, a slight smile appearing at the corner of his mouth. You have improved quite a bit since I last saw you. You have already embarked on this path. He reached out and gently patted Lin Chia on the head, then withdrew his hand into his sleeve. Walk this path well. In the heavenly court someone is waiting for you, waiting for the day you fight side by side. Lin Chia was momentarily stunned upon hearing this, confusion flickering in his eyes. The heavenly court? Someone is waiting for him? Who could it be? As Lin Chia hesitated, contemplating whether to ask further, the Taoist's gaze shifted to the other three. Suddenly his figure paused slightly. He focused on Bai Li Pangpang, who was almost bowing down to the ground while making a deep bow, his brow furrowing slightly. His eyes first showed surprise, then confusion, and finally, as if he understood something, a faint smile appeared on his face. Little fatty, lift your head. The Taoist spoke calmly. Bai Li Pangpang's sturdy body trembled, straightening up, his gaze meeting the Taoist's deep eyes. He couldn't help but swallow hard, excitement shining in his eyes as he tentatively asked. Heavenly Venerable, are you going to take me as your disciple? I always thought my talent was quite good. The Taoist fell silent. He scrutinized Bai Li Pangpang for a moment, shook his head and said, No, I will not take you as my disciple. Like that kid, you have your own path. Bai Li Pangpang sighed in disappointment. However, I can give you something. The Taoist suddenly spoke, reaching into his wide sleeve and pulling out a jade rui. He flicked his finger lightly and the jade rui transformed into a white light, directly entering Bai Li Pangpang's belly, disappearing without a trace. Bai Li Pangpang looked down at his belly in shock, reaching out to touch it, seemingly finding no change. As if recalling something, he lifted his head with a hint of a whimper in his voice and said, Heavenly Venerable, you didn't just give me a child, did you? I'm still young, and my dad will kill me. Upon hearing this, the corner of the Taoist's mouth twitched slightly, directly ignoring Bai Li Pangpang's words. With a gentle flick of his sleeve, Bai Li Pangpang's cries abruptly ceased, as if his voice had been muted. His gaze swept over Chao Yuan and Jialan, pausing on their faces for a moment, nodding slightly. The matters of Fengdu must not be disclosed. Hearing this, the others were first taken aback, then nodded solemnly. The Taoist raised his sleeve again, and just as he was about to wave it, the Emperor of Fengdu suddenly spoke. Heavenly Venerable, please wait. The Taoist's movement halted in mid-air. The Emperor of Fengdu stepped in front of Lin Chia, his usually dignified and calm face rarely showing a hint of conflict. After pondering for a moment, he slowly spoke. Lin Chia, when you return to see Tingting and my old man, remember to tell them, I am dead. The Emperor of Fengdu paused and added, I died in battle. Lin Chia was taken aback, gazing at the familiar face of the Emperor of Fengdu. After a long while he slowly nodded. Also, please convey my message to Chen Han. After I am gone, the 332nd Squad will be handed over to him. Those collectibles in my office cabinet, let him use them for me. I understand, don't worry. The Emperor of Fengdu nodded slightly and turned to look at the Taoist. The Taoist extended his sleeve again and waved it. In an instant, a flash of white light passed, and the figures of Lin Chia and the others vanished without a trace. In the empty hall, only the Taoist and the Emperor of Fengdu remained. The Taoist turned to look at the silent Emperor of Fengdu and sighed helplessly. Since you care, why not go back and say goodbye to them? The Emperor of Fengdu raised his head, gazing through the slightly ajar palace door at the sprawling ghost city, a bitter smile appearing at the corner of his mouth. I fear that after saying goodbye, I won't be able to return. Chapter 381, Return? At the edge of the primeval jungle. An abandoned logging site. A flash of white light suddenly appeared, and the figures of Lin Chia and his four companions materialized before the logging site. Chao Yuan scanned the surroundings, letting out a long breath, finally out from underground, and the celestial master even sent us directly to the edge of the forest. Bai Li Pangpang, looking down and pinching the white flesh on his belly, wore a mournful expression as he turned to Lin Chia. Chia, do you think The celestial master really gave me a child. Lin Chia's mouth twitched slightly. It shouldn't be the case. That's within Guanin's area of expertise. But why has my belly grown so much? Bailey Pang Pang exclaimed anxiously. Chow Yuan rolled his eyes. Your belly was already that big. Don't you know that yourself? Bailey Pang Pang shook his round belly as if realizing something, and turned to Lin Chia, speaking with righteous indignation. Chia, if you hadn't led us into Fingdu, I wouldn't have this child. Anyway, if this child is really born, you have to take responsibility for him. Lin Chia. And Qingyu pondered for a moment. If that day really comes, I can help you with a cesarean section. Lin Chia suppressed the urge to draw his sword and cut down these two, taking a deep breath. In any case, let's leave here first. Chow Yuan walked over to Lin Chia's side, pointing at Jialon nearby, and quietly asked, What about her? Lin Chia turned his head and saw Jialon standing behind him, quietly watching him. When Lin Chia looked at her, her autumn-like eyes blinked, seemingly lost in thought. Lin Chia contemplated for a moment. This is a special product discovered during the mission. We'll write a report when we get back and package her to submit to the state. Jialon. Chow Yuan was taken aback. Isn't she a person? How can this be? Before he could finish, Bailey Pang Pang patted his shoulder, sighing. Old Chow, I didn't expect even you to be more enlightened than Chia. Looks like I overestimated him. The four of them chatted as they walked toward the edge of the primeval forest. The urgency of the situation was far less than when they entered the forest, so they slowed down and began to appreciate the natural scenery. By the time the five of them exited the primeval forest, it was already dusk. They stood at the entrance of the forestry bureau, and all of them stopped in unison. Chia, Bailey Pang Pang hesitated. Do we really have to do this? Lin Chia was silent for a moment before nodding. He extended his hands and slowly pushed open the large door of the forestry bureau. As the sky darkened, the dim yellow sunset cast its light on the small, dilapidated building. The cold wind howled across the desolate land, causing the windows to rattle. Frost covered the window eaves, appearing pale under the dusk light. Behind this window was an even paler young face. A little girl wrapped in a coat stood by the window, her body slightly trembling from the cold wind seeping through the cracks. The glow from the heater behind her reflected on the glass, but she stubbornly stared at the tightly closed door. Ting ting. An old man slowly stood up from beside the heater, his murky eyes filled with heartache. He walked to the little girl's back, took her hand and said, Let's move away from the window, okay? It's windy outside. The little girl kept her gaze fixed on the door, shaking her head silently. Ting ting, you can still see from beside the heater. It's too far from here. You just came back from the forest and can't stand the cold. The old man tugged at the little girl's hand, trying to pull her inside. The little girl shook off the old man's hand, standing at the window defiantly saying, I won't. I don't want to go in. If I go in, I won't be able to see Daddy. The old man stood dumbfounded behind her, momentarily at a loss. Chin Han walked over to the little girl, squatted down and gently said, Ting Ting, be good. Your daddy will be fine, he will be back soon. You're lying. You're all lying. The little girl suddenly turned around, her eyes red. She pressed her lips tightly together and shouted with all her might, Didn't you say we would leave first and Daddy would catch up soon? Why has a whole day passed and Daddy still hasn't come back? You clearly promised. Why are you all breaking your promises? Her voice grew increasingly choked, becoming softer, her lips trembling. Even though she tried hard to control her tears, they kept streaming down her cheeks. Ultimately, she completely gave up on controlling herself, and this little girl, just over 10 years old, cried out as if she had lost everything. The old man's hands trembled slightly as he embraced the little girl, tears streaming down his aged face as well. His son had told him that if he hadn't returned in 3 days, he should call the police. Now it was already the 4th day. Ting Ting, be good. Don't cry, don't cry. The old man wiped his tears, speaking tremulously. But there are monsters in the forest. What if Daddy gets caught by them? I don't want Daddy to die. The little girl sobbed uncontrollably. As the two embraced and wept, Chin Han pressed his lips together, glancing at the time, his grip on his watch tightening. Bang! At that moment, the old, worn door was suddenly pushed open. The cold wind howled into the room, instantly dispelling the warmth of the heater, causing the furnishings inside to topple over. The tear-streaked little girl looked up at the door, her entire being frozen in place. Outside the door stood 5 people. 3 were the brothers she had seen in the forest, and 1 was a beautiful sister she didn't recognize. In front of them, just beyond the threshold where the howling wind rushed in, stood a tall and robust figure. It was a scruffy middle-aged man with a strong and symmetrical face. His slightly disheveled hair blew in the wind as he wore an old, greasy military coat that flapped in the breeze. His gaze fell on the little girl with red, tear-filled eyes. He opened his arms, a slight smile on his lips, his eyes radiating unprecedented warmth. "Ting Ting, Daddy is back." Hearing that familiar voice, the old man stood frozen in place, while the little girl's tear-filled eyes turned into crescent moons as she rushed forward, diving into that solid and warm embrace. He lifted the little girl, his rough beard brushing against her tear-streaked face. This time the little girl didn't shy away as before. Instead she smiled and nestled against his face, wrapping her arms around his neck as if she were embracing the whole world. "Daddy." The little girl pressed her lips together, happily saying, "Welcome back." Chapter 382, The Burning Application. "Diong." The old man carefully looked Li Diong up and down. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine, what could possibly be wrong with me?" Li Diong grinned. "Actually, now that you mention it, there is some good news." "What is it?" "I got promoted." Li Diong said cheerfully. "I received a transfer order from above. I won't be a forest ranger here anymore. I'm going to the military camp to be a squad leader." "Going to be a squad leader? That's great. This place is cold and shabby. It's good to change locations." The old man clapped his hands. "By the way, where are you going?" "Woolamukhi." The old man widened his eyes. "Woolamukhi? Isn't that to the west?" "Yeah." Li Diong nodded. "Although it's a bit far from here, the environment is better and life in the military camp is guaranteed. Plus, it's a small official position which is much better than suffering here." This is too far." The old man frowned tightly, then seemed to think of something. "Wait a minute, aren't you just a forest ranger? Strictly speaking, you're not even military personnel. Why are they suddenly transferring you to Woolamukhi to be a squad leader?" "I pulled some strings. You don't need to ask, old man." Li Diong spoke vaguely. "So when are you leaving?" "I'll tidy up here and leave in a couple of days." "So urgent?" The old man quickly said. "Then I'll stay with Ting Ting for a few more days and see you off. We're a confidential unit. They won't allow farewells." Li Diong said seriously. The old man was taken aback, suspiciously saying, "Diong, I may not have much education, but don't lie to me. How can a child go to the army and not be allowed to be seen off?" "You see, it's precisely because you don't have much education that you don't know, right? Some units really do have such rules now." Li Diong tried to persuade them, and after some coaxing he finally convinced the old man and the girl. "Daddy, are you going to a very far place?" Ting Ting tilted her head, asking reluctantly, "Can I come to see you?" "Ting Ting, be good. Daddy is going to be a border guard." Li Diong patted her head. "That place is very far. You probably can't go. But don't worry, when you grow up, Daddy will come back." The little girl thought for a moment. "So when will I be considered grown up?" Li Diong paused for a moment, then smiled. "When the day comes that it's your turn to take care of Grandpa, then you'll be grown up." The little girl nodded, seeming to understand. Li Diong glanced at the time, put Ting Ting down and stood up. "Old man, it's about time. Should I have them take you to the station? There have been some incidents in the mountains recently, and I need to hurry and get back to work to report to the higher-ups." The old man was initially reluctant to leave, but upon hearing Li Diong mention work, he hesitated for a long time before nodding. "Then you get busy. When you get to Woolamukhi, make sure to call home when you have time, all right?" "Got it, old man. Don't worry." Li Diong waved at them and gave a look to the 4 people outside. Bai Li Pang Pang immediately smiled and walked forward, swaying as he carried the little girl outside. Once the old man and the little girl were taken away by Bai Li Pang Pang and the others, the entire room fell silent. Li Diong turned around and saw that at some point, Chin Han had already drawn a straight knife, its blade pointed directly at Li Diong's nose, exuding a chilling gleam. "You are not Li Diong," Chin Han said firmly. "Who exactly are you?" Li Diong calmly looked into his eyes, and the next moment, a magical glow erupted, transforming him back into Lin Chia. Chin Han witnessed this scene, his expression darkening, and he coldly said, "You really have a problem. Did you kill Uncle Li?" Lin Chia's eyes narrowed slightly, and the straight knife in Chin Han's hand suddenly became engulfed in darkness, violently trembling before breaking free from his grip and stabbing into the ceiling. Night Watchman, Team 332, Chin Han. Lin Chia pulled out a badge from his pocket and slowly spoke. "I am Lin Chia, the captain of the 5th Special Team of the Night Watchman's Reserve. Now I regret to inform you. Team 332's captain, Li Diong, bravely died in battle against the Red Arm Ants." Upon hearing this, Chin Han froze in place, staring at the badge in Lin Chia's hand. After a long time his face gradually turned pale. "Impossible, I don't believe it." Chin Han glared at Lin Chia, shouting, "I've never heard of the 5th Special Team, let alone some inexplicable reserve. Your badge is fake. You killed Uncle Li." "If I killed him, why would I go through all this trouble to do everything I just did for him?" Lin Chia replied calmly. Chin Han was stunned. Lin Chia shook his head, turned and walked toward the door, opening it as a gust of wind rushed in. "Before he died, Li Diong asked me to pass on a message." Lin Chia reached the door and said calmly, "From now on, Team 332 will be handed over to you. You can use the collections in his cabinet." After saying this, his figure flickered and disappeared into the thickening night. The cold wind swept into the room, producing a mournful sound. Chin Han stood there dazed, his fingers loosening slightly, and the straight knife fell from his hand to the ground. "Uncle Li." Chin Han stiffly turned around, walked to the office desk and opened the second drawer beneath the office cabinet. Inside was a neatly arranged drawer full of cigarettes. He stared at the cigarettes in the drawer, his gaze somewhat vacant. After taking a deep breath, he bent down and took out a cigarette, placing it in his mouth as he mechanically walked step by step into the cold wind outside. He sat down on the old steps in front of the door, watching the sky gradually darken in the distance. He took out a neatly folded piece of paper from his pocket and slowly unfolded it. It was a transfer application. A transfer application from Team 332 to another city, and the applicant's name was Chin Han. He lowered his head and read the letter word by word, a self-deprecating smile appearing at the corner of his mouth. He took out a lighter from his pocket and placed it at the corner of the paper. Click, click, click. In the cold wind, he pressed the button several times before a tiny flame finally ignited. The flame caught the paper, burning brighter and brighter, the black ashes swirling away with the wind, disappearing without a trace. He calmly watched this scene, lowered his head and brought the cigarette in his mouth to the flame, lighting it. A wisp of blue smoke rose from the tip of the cigarette. He took a deep breath and began to cough violently. Cough, cough, cough. He held the cigarette, sighed deeply and looked up at the sky, whispering in a voice only he could hear, "Uncle Li, your taste is a bit too poor." Meanwhile, in the dark sky above, the Emperor of Fengdu stood in the air, staring blankly at the small house below, his eyes seemingly penetrating endless space, observing everything that had just happened. He looked like a statue. Beside him, a figure smiled gently. "So, how is it? The person we chose. Not bad, right?" The Emperor of Fengdu watched the pair of grandfather and granddaughter leave, remained silent for a long time, then turned and walked slowly into the distant darkness. A rare softness appeared on his cold face, and the corners of his mouth slightly lifted. "I owe this kid a favor." Chapter 383, The 100-Year Birthday Banquet. 7 nights we didn't do as the Emperor wished. He won't be angry, right? On the green train, Li Pang rested his head on his hand, looking out the window with some worry. Lin Chi was silent for a moment, then shook his head. No, compared to that sad and heart-wrenching ending, this result might be what Li Diong truly yearns for deep down but cannot attain. That's true. Chow Yuan nodded. Compared to crying uncontrollably, that little girl looks much better when she smiles. Lin Chi rubbed his cold hands together and stuffed them into his sleeves, gazing at the snowflakes gradually falling outside, murmuring to himself, "The sky here is too cold. It needs some warm stories, not the cold and heartless reality. Perhaps that is the very meaning of stories existing." "But you still told Chin Han the truth." Li Pang shrugged. "I guess he's not feeling great about it either, huh? This matter was never something he could be kept in the dark about." Lin Chi spoke lightly. "The night watchman shouldn't just be a listener of stories. They should stand in front of everyone, bearing the knives on their backs while smiling and telling them stories. Sounds pretty tragic. Bai Li Peng Peng sighed. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught sight of Lin Qi beside him. He saw Jialan holding a book titled, Chi-Chi Baby Chinese Pinyin Complete Guide. Her lips slightly parted as she earnestly read something. Miss Jialan. Bai Li Peng Peng leaned closer to her, his eyes sparkling with wisdom. If there's any character you can't pronounce, feel free to ask me. Among this group, I'm the most knowledgeable. Jialan glanced up at him, hesitated for a moment, then placed the book on the small table, pointing at 2 Chinese characters and mumbling indistinctly. Sa, the, Sha Bai. Bai Li Peng Peng. Bai Li Peng Peng, with a pained expression, pointed at those 2 characters and said, It's not Sha Bai. These 2 characters are pronounced Shami. Repeat after me, Shami. Stupid bird. Shami. Sha Bai. Sha. Forget it, Qi Yi, you teach him yourself. Bai Li Peng Peng gloomily returned to his seat. Lin Qi Yi pondered for a moment, pointed at the 2 characters, and pronounced each syllable clearly. Shami. Jialan opened her mouth, earnestly mimicking Lin Qi Yi's mouth movements. Shami? Yes, that's right. Bai Li Peng Peng. Bai Li Peng Peng looked at Jialan with a resentful expression, even starting to suspect that she had done it on purpose. Qi Yi, has the mission report been submitted? Chao Yuan seemed to think of something and asked. I already submitted the action report along with Jialan's information back at the station, but I specifically omitted the part about Fengdu. By now, Commander Yi has probably finished reading it. Lin Qi Yi replied. So when is the next mission? Do we have any holidays? Bai Li Peng Peng seemed to think of something, his brows furrowing. In a few days it's my dad's birthday. I'll probably have to go home for his birthday party. Your dad's birthday party? The chairman of Bai Li Group. Yeah, he usually keeps a low profile on his birthday, but this time it's different. Lin Qi Yi and the others exchanged glances. Why is it different? Bai Li Peng Peng scratched his head and chuckled. This year is his 50th birthday. After this birthday he'll be retiring, so it's kind of a farewell party. The chairman of Bai Li Group is retiring? And Qing Yu exclaimed in surprise. That's a big deal. Bai Li Group is the largest enterprise in the entire Great Xia, and it's connected to mysterious forces, managing many forbidden items. Moreover, it's the second largest sponsor of the Night Watchman after the government, and the chairman himself is one of the honorary high-ranking members of the Night Watchman. If he retires, who will manage such a large Bai Li Group? Everyone's gaze turned to Bai Li Peng Peng, who was grinning sheepishly, scratching his head, his smile even brighter. You! Lin Qi Yi exclaimed in astonishment. The first thought rising in his mind was, Bai Li Group is finished. It's me. After all, I'm my dad's only son, the designated heir of Bai Li Group since birth. Now that he's retiring, it's naturally my turn to take over. Actually, our family isn't that impressive, we just have a bit of money. I'm just an ordinary person, so don't treat me as anything special. Bai Li Peng Peng laughed while signaling everyone to stay calm. Chao Yuan rolled his eyes and couldn't help but ask, so if you go back to inherit the family business, what will happen to the team? Don't worry, even if I inherit the group, I'm not old enough to run such a large enterprise on my own, and I lack experience. So at that time I'll just be a figurehead and there will be dedicated people to manage the company for me. I can still stay in the team. Bai Li Peng Peng patted his shoulder. Everyone couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Of course, it wasn't because they were worried about Bai Li Peng Peng not coming back, but rather they were sweating for the future of Bai Li Group. Since this birthday party is so important, you should go back. Lin Qi Yi thought for a moment and said, even if there's a mission at that time, I'll let you take a day off to attend this birthday party. Hey, don't let it be just me taking a day off. Bai Li Peng Peng's eyes widened. You all are my brothers from Bai Li Peng Peng. For such an important ceremony, you all must come to support me. Don't worry, once we're in Guangshan's territory, I'll definitely treat you well, making sure you won't want to leave. Lin Qi Yi smiled helplessly. If time permits, we'll go take a look. Just as he finished speaking, a sudden urgent ringtone rang out. Lin Qi Yi was taken aback, pulling out the phone Yi Fan had given him from his pocket, his brow slightly furrowing. I'll take this call. Lin Qiye's gaze swept across the noisy carriage as he quickly walked to the end of the green train, pushed open the door and stepped out onto the railing. The howling cold wind lifted Lin Qiye's black hair as he took out his phone and answered the call. "Hello. You all did very well on your first mission." Yi Fan's voice came through the phone. "I've read your report, but it's not convenient to discuss the specifics right now. There's an extremely urgent situation in Gusu City, and you need to head there immediately." Lin Qiyi frowned slightly. "Extremely urgent? How do we get there?" "A helicopter is on its way. It will take you to the nearest airport where a transport is waiting for you. The mission details and some feedback from the last mission will be there." "Where will it pick us up?" "Right where you are now." Lin Qiyi was taken aback. "But we are currently—" "I know, on the train." Yi Fan interrupted Lin Qiyi. "The helicopter will arrive at your location in 2 minutes. Hurry and call your team. Jump off the train." Chapter 384, The Third Royal Market. Bang 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 bang. Under the dark sky, a green train sped along the tracks, with drifting snowflakes falling onto the black rails, gradually melting away. "Hey, what are so many of you doing here?" At the door at the end of the train, a guard leaning against the side immediately asked warily as a group of 5 rushed to the entrance. Lin Chia placed his hand on the door handle, slightly tilted his head to glance at him, and a faint golden light flashed in his eyes. The next moment the guard's eyes rolled back and he fainted on the spot. Chao Yuan reached out to steady the guard's body, silently placing him on the ground, and nodded at Lin Chia. Lin Chia opened the door and the cold wind mixed with snowflakes rushed into the carriage. He swayed slightly, lightly pushed off the railing with his toes, and leaped down from the train, floating gently onto the tracks. Following closely, Jialan, Chao Yuan and Qingyu, and Bailey Pang Pang also jumped down from the back of the train. Fortunately, everyone was quite skilled and the green train wasn't moving too fast, so they all landed steadily. In the darkness, Lin Chia turned around and watched the green train speeding away along the tracks, disappearing from view, and he sighed with some regret. "What's wrong?" Chao Yuan walked up beside him, puzzled. "The train fare, what a pity." Lin Chia shook his head. Bailey Pang Pang wrapped his clothes tighter against the cold wind, exhaled a puff of white mist and couldn't help but complain. "It's so cold. By the way, what happened in Gusu City? It's urgent enough for us to jump off the train? Once we get on the plane we'll naturally find out." Lin Chia looked up at the pitch-black night sky as a helicopter swept across, its black rotor blades leaving behind trails, and the fierce wind howled across the land. The 5 of them stood quietly in place, gazing at the helicopter, their clothes flapping wildly in the wind. The helicopter landed steadily on the open ground next to the tracks. The 5 of them braved the wind from the rotor blades and quickly walked into the cabin. As the helicopter slowly ascended, they disappeared into the night sky. 10 minutes later, a black transport plane took off from the Tianhe military airport, flying straight south. Inside the cabin, Lin Chia and the others sat facing each other on a long bench, strapped in with seatbelts, their expressions revealing worry. "Hello, this is the information regarding the 2 missions that Commander Yi asked me to pass on to you." A military officer stepped forward, saluted Lin Chia, and then handed over a document. Behind him, 2 others carried several black boxes and placed them in front of them. Lin Chia nodded and took the document. The surface of these 2 documents bore a highly confidential seal. After hesitating for a moment, Lin Chia first opened the report on the recently completed Anta County mission. The content of this document wasn't extensive, and Lin Chia quickly scanned the paper. On the first page, in a very official tone, it expressed approval and affirmation of Lin Chia and the others' actions during this mission, promising to award all team members the Starlight Medal. Lin Chia merely glanced at it and moved on to the next page. The moment his gaze fell on this page, Lin Chia's pupils slightly constricted, and a look of surprise appeared in his eyes. This page contained information about the Third King Ruins. Forbidden Ruins Sequence 015. Third King Ruins, Immortal. In the entire history of the Great Xia, the Third King Ruins, Immortal, has only appeared once, suspected to be the first forbidden ruin to manifest in humans, with its owner existing over 2,000 years ago during the Han Dynasty, a girl around 10 years old. Immortal possesses the ability to grant an object or being an absolute constant state. Theoretically, Any external influencing factors, including divine attacks, cannot affect immortal, granting it endless lifespan along with absolute defensive capabilities. Researchers have assessed that this forbidden ruin poses a potential threat to deities, hence it is classified as Third King ruins. According to fragmented royal historical records, the owner of this ruin was sealed in a coffin 2,000 years ago and sent to an unknown place, disappearing without a trace. Researchers speculate based on the characteristics of immortal that this owner has a high probability of still being alive. Following this lengthy research report, there were a few handwritten lines from Yi Fan. The gist seemed to be that Lin Chia should not rush to submit it and could observe for a while. If the overall assessment was satisfactory, it could be incorporated into the newly formed 5th Special Team. After all, for someone with such strong potential, there seems to be no other place for her except a special team. However, the existing special team members were not lacking, so the best solution was, of course, to place her in this newly formed 5th Special Team. Lin Chia understood Yi Fan's intention and looked up at Jialon beside him. Seeing him looking at her, Jialon tilted her head in confusion, her long eyelashes fluttering gently, her eyes filled with puzzlement. Lin Chia hesitated for a moment and finally asked, "Do you have a place you want to go?" Jialon was taken aback, frowned in thought for a moment and shook her head. "Then stay by my side. How about that?" Lin Chia looked into her eyes and said earnestly. Upon hearing this, Jialon's cheeks quickly flushed with a hint of red, and she slightly turned her head away, her lips pressed together, looking at Lin Chia with a strange expression, as if to say she didn't expect him to be this kind of person. Lin Chia seemed to understand something and quickly added, "I meant stay in this team." Jialon was stunned, the corners of her mouth slightly lifted, and she spoke somewhat ambiguously. "Not submitted? Why? You want to ask me why I changed my mind and won't submit you?" Lin Chia tentatively asked. Jialon nodded, her eyes filled with anticipation as she looked at Lin Chia. Lin Chia thought for a moment and honestly replied, "Because you're too strong." Jialon's expression froze, and she shot him an angry glare before abruptly turning her head away, clearly not intending to talk to him anymore. Lin Chia scratched his head in confusion, feeling that the current situation seemed a bit troublesome. He decided to set those matters aside and continued to look at the second document. This document described the upcoming emergency situation in Gusu City. He opened the document stamped with a highly confidential seal and pulled out a thick stack of papers. At the top of the first page, several large characters were written in bright red. Gusu has suddenly experienced a large-scale mental pollution area, with the pollution source suspected to be the mysterious entity that escaped from Songnan City a year ago, Belkrand. Chapter 385. Mental Pollution. Belkrand? Lin Chia saw these 5 characters, and his mind immediately conjured images of the reversed videotape, the hijacked airplane, and the little bug that escaped from the crystal after the ritual was completed. This incident was all too familiar to Lin Chia as he had once been involved in it. At that time, although they had prevented the plane crash and killed the tavern owner, Bel Clan still completed the ritual and escaped from the crystal. Before they could even begin tracking it, the great disaster in Songnan arrived. He had thought that this foreign entity had already been eradicated by the Phoenix team, but unexpectedly, it was still alive and had reappeared in Suzhou, a city neighboring Songnan, a year later. A year should be enough time for it to recover to its peak state, right? Lin Chia's gaze continued downward. The first half of the document detailed Bel Clan's first appearance in Songnan, which he didn't need to read again. He skipped ahead to the section about Suzhou. At 23:16 last night, a sudden purple mist erupted from the center of Suzhou, slowly spreading outward. By 7:42 this morning, the radius of the purple mist had expanded to 10 kilometers. According to statistics, the number of people currently enveloped by the purple mist is approximately 6,300, and the mist's range continues to expand. The Night Watchman Team 017 stationed in Suzhou promptly arrived at the area surrounding the mist and utilized the node to seal off the streets within 30 kilometers of the mist for sampling and investigation. After analysis, it was determined that the purple mist possesses a strong ability to contaminate the mind. All humans enveloped within it would be polluted, losing their self-awareness and falling into states of dementia, madness, or confusion. However, other living beings seem unaffected, and the process is reversible with the severity of contamination related to the individual's mental strength. Preliminary estimates suggest that individuals with mental strength at the pool level or below have a wakefulness duration of about 5 hours in the mist, those at the river level about 12 hours, and those at the sea level about 30 hours. After understanding the characteristics of the mist, the Night Watchman Team 017 left one member outside to provide support, while the remaining 6 entered the purple mist immediately to carry out the eradication operation against Belcland. As of 16:12 this afternoon, the Night Watchman Team 017 has been inside the purple mist for over 16 hours, with no signs of it dissipating. After reading the entire document, Lin Chia's expression turned grave. He glanced at the time displayed in the cabin. It was already 19:10. This meant that Team 017 had been inside the purple mist for nearly 19 hours. The document also contained detailed information about the members of Team 017, with only the captain, Qin Kai, being at the sea level, while the rest were all at the river level. If nothing unexpected happened, the vast majority of them, except for the captain, had likely succumbed to mental contamination. Just as Lin Chia flipped to the last member's information, his finger trembled and his brow furrowed tightly. He looked up at Bai Li Pangpang, his expression somewhat complicated. "What's wrong?" Bai Li Pangpang noticed Lin Chia's strange gaze and couldn't help but ask in confusion. Lin Chia handed over the document for everyone to read. "Molly." Bai Li Pangpang froze in place after reading the incident introduction and seeing the photo of the last team member. "Yes, that's right, I remember she was indeed transferred to the Suzhou Night Watchman team. So, doesn't that mean she is?" Bai Li Pangpang suddenly stood up from his seat, a rare look of anxiety appearing on his face. "Don't panic." Lin Chia spoke to comfort him, stating that the document mentioned they had left one team member outside, and Molly had only joined this team for a year, making her a newcomer who likely hadn't entered the mist. Upon hearing this, Bai Li Pangpang's expression eased slightly, but his tightly furrowed brow showed no signs of relaxing. "Belcland?" And Qingyu raised her head in confusion after reading the document. "Wasn't it said that foreign entities were handled by the Phoenix team? Commander Yi said that the Phoenix team is currently on a mission in another city and won't be able to arrive in the short term. The same goes for other teams. At this time only we can go to Suzhou." Lin Chia shook his head helplessly. "There simply aren't enough special teams of night watchmen. Otherwise the higher-ups wouldn't be so eager to establish a 5th special team." Lin Chia's gaze fell on the document bag and he took out 2 more documents, glancing at them before handing them to Qingyu and Chao Yuan. "Your applications for joining the team have been approved. Qingyu, the box over there should contain your emblem, along with a complete set of surgical knives made of straight knife material as you requested." Lin Chia pointed to one of the black boxes. "As for the cloak, it will be custom-made after officially becoming a special team, so it hasn't been issued yet." And Qingyu stood up from her seat and opened the black box, which indeed contained a shiny emblem and a small box of delicate surgical knives glowing faintly. And Qingyu picked up one of the surgical knives and examined it closely for a long time, a hint of gray appearing in her eyes. "Strange material, but it seems very useful." And Qingyu nodded in satisfaction. "What about me? Why don't I have a document?" Bai Li Pangpang asked in confusion when he saw that the other 2 had received their documents. Lin Chia shook his head. "I don't know, there are none left inside. It might be that the time is too urgent, and your document hasn't gone through the proper procedures yet." "Right." Bai Li Pangpang made a bitter face and sat back down. Lin Chia's mental energy swept over another black box, and his brow slightly raised. He stepped forward to open it, revealing a necklace lying quietly inside. "As your guardian?" Lin Chia exclaimed in surprise upon seeing the necklace. This necklace was something he had exchanged for with Blood Boiling and Instructor Yuan during his training camp. After entering the mental illness, all his belongings were confiscated, and this necklace was naturally among them. Now Commander Yi had sent someone to return it to him. In any case, this mission is to enter that purple mist, rescue the lost members of the Suzhou Night Watchman Team 017, and eradicate the foreign entity Belcland. Are there any questions? Lin Chia put away the necklace, placed the twin knives into the black box, and slung it behind him, scanning the others with his gaze. Everyone shook their heads. "Captain Lin, we are about to reach the airspace over Suzhou. Are you ready?" The officer walked up to Lin Chia and asked. Ready. Find an airport to land. Lin Chia nodded. Land? The officer was taken aback. Our plane never lands at other airports. Other special teams jump out directly. You all do have a means of flight, right? Chapter 386. Hardcore Landing. Hearing this, the 5 people in the cabin stiffened simultaneously and exchanged silent glances. Flying methods? Well, it's not entirely impossible. Bailey Pongpong's Yaoguang can transform into a flying sword, but while it's fine for a short flight near the ground, descending from such a height would be quite difficult given his current level of mental power. Moreover, carrying 5 people at once would definitely be considered overloading. The flying sword would probably break apart midair. Chia, how about you recite a poem for us like you did at the fasting place? Bailey Pang leaned closer to Lin Chia and asked in a low voice. Lin Chia shook his head. Gliding is the most he can do. Jumping down from a wall several dozen meters high is one thing, but falling from this height relying solely on gliding is definitely not enough. Bailey Pongpong's expression suddenly turned awkward. Lin Chia took a deep breath, walked up to the officer and mustered the courage to ask, Do you have parachutes on this plane? The officer hesitated for a moment. We do have some, but they are only for the pilot and me in case of emergencies. There are only 4 in total. Only 4? Lin Chia's gaze swept over the others and his brows furrowed immediately. There are 5 of us. 4 parachutes are definitely not enough. Wait. Lin Chia suddenly thought of something and looked up at Jialon sitting nearby, his eyes lighting up. Seeing that look, Jialon felt an inexplicable sense of foreboding. 1 minute later. Above Gusu City, a black transport plane roared through the sky, the tailgate slowly opening. 5 figures stood side by side at the door, the fierce wind whipping their clothes. In the night sky, the neon-lit bustling city center was shrouded in purple mist, resembling a giant bowl turned upside down over the earth, gradually swallowing the surrounding streets, like a strange monster lurking in the darkness. Lin Chia looked down at his feet, his brow slightly furrowing. From the plane, it was clear that the coverage of this purple mist had already exceeded 15 kilometers and was slowly increasing. They didn't have much time left. The bell cranned, extermination operation begins. With a parachute bag on his back and a black box in hand, Lin Chia was the first to step off the plane, disappearing into the night sky. And Qingyu and Chao Yuan followed closely behind. Bailey Pang, with a pained expression, cautiously leaned over the edge of the cabin and took a careful look down, his lips trembling. Damn, it's so high. Jumping down won't. Ah. Before Bailey Pang could finish, a foot suddenly kicked him in the back, sending him flying out of the cabin like a ball, followed by a piercing scream as he plummeted toward the ground. Jialon stood by the cabin, looking resentfully at the 4 figures with parachutes jumping down, her lips pressed together, almost visibly displaying her displeasure. She huffed angrily, hesitated for a moment, then gritted her teeth and leaped off the edge of the cabin. Unlike the previous 4, she wasn't wearing a parachute. The fierce wind whipped her blue robe and her long black hair flowed like a waterfall in the air. With a light yellow hardwood bough on her back, she plummeted toward the ground like a shooting star. The 5 figures drew closer to the ground, and soon the 4 parachutes opened one after another, their descent slowing as they began to drift down. But the blue figure showed no signs of slowing down, diving even faster and quickly surpassing the 4 with parachutes. Jialon's figure swept past Lin Chia, who was momentarily stunned, as if he saw her shake her fist at him with an expression that seemed to threaten him. Lin Chia shook his head. Yeah, I must have seen it wrong. Whoosh. Bang. The blue figure pierced through the mist at an astonishing speed, crashing without any flourish onto the roof of a 5-story office building, not stopping there but continuing to smash through 5 floors, crashing down to the ground with a thunderous impact. Debris flew and thick smoke rose slowly from the large hole, drifting up from the rooftop. The 4 of them, swaying in their parachutes, entered the mist, adjusting their direction with ropes, heading straight toward where Jialon had landed. By the time they landed on the street in front of the building, a figure was already slowly climbing out of the deep pit, brushing off the dust from her blue robe, walking to the glass revolving door, stopping to tidy her hair and collar in the reflection, before pushing the door open and stepping out. Lin Chia unfastened the parachute straps and turned to meet Jialon's extremely resentful gaze, feeling a bit embarrassed as he coughed twice. Are you okay? Jialan's fair fist immediately clenched tightly. Time waits for no one. The longer we stay in this mist, the more severe the mental pollution we'll suffer. We should quickly discuss our strategy. Lin Chia turned his head and spoke seriously. Jialan shot him a fierce glare, but after thinking for a moment she reluctantly relaxed her fist. Can you share your thoughts? Lin Chia secretly sighed in relief and turned to Qingyu. Qingyu thought for a moment and said, when I was falling just now, I carefully analyzed all the details of this mission. Although the target is very clear, the process is not simple. First of all, Belkrand is very small, not much bigger than a pebble, and it's extremely cunning. Finding it in this vast area of mist is like searching for a needle in a haystack. Lin Chia nodded repeatedly upon hearing this. Exactly, I thought of that too. This mist has almost enveloped the entire commercial area around the center of Gusu. Even I would need at least 10 hours to search it thoroughly with my mental power. So what do we do? Bailey Peng Peng couldn't help but speak up. After 10 hours, even our minds will be polluted. Therefore, relying solely on us is not enough. Qingyu spoke slowly. Chao Yuan frowned in confusion. But besides us, who else is there? A shy smile appeared on Qingyu's face. At that moment, the manhole covers around them suddenly began to tremble violently, as if something was about to break through. Bang! The heavy manhole cover was directly blown off, and gray rats surged out of the sewer like a torrent, instantly covering the street. They circled around Qingyu, respectfully lying on the ground. Chao Yuan and the others instinctively frowned, preparing for battle, but they were all frozen in place at this sight. In the center of this rat tide, Qingyu adjusted her glasses, the lenses reflecting the light from the street lamps, and slowly spoke. This year my fish species division process has never stopped. The cities surrounding Tsangnan City have been completely infiltrated by me.